A lot of people consider getting banned from the UFC a death sentence. Look, when your whole life is revolved around nothing special, and all of a sudden you start taking self-defense classes and you're actually good at it, and you dive even deeper in it, and you realize you are so good you can actually go pro, and even good enough that you actually make it to the UFC after you're banned and done with the company, it's hard to make money any other way. And these are the people we are talking about today. Whether it was sucker punching opponents, shoving referees,
we cut him, he'll never fight in the UFC ever again,
or putting the promotion in a bad light.
This is the guy, Matt Riddle, who did an interview and said, I smoke marijuana so I don't beat my wife and children.
Oh my.
Oh my.
Some of these layoffs are a little too hard, and some are deserved, so let's dive into it. First person we're gonna dive into is Matt Riddle. He started out in the UFC with Dana White's leadership as a member of the Ultimate Fighter cast. However, it would start with an impressive record, but would run into trouble when he tested positive for marijuana, not once, but twice. The first time was Riddle's victory against Chris Clemens. The fight result was overturned because he failed his post-fight drug test. Whereas in February 2013, he suffered the same fate when he fought Che Mill, as he tested once again positive for marijuana, resulting in another wellness policy violation. With this being his second failed drug test in a year, the company decided to release him.
Now the reason he's not in the UFC anymore is because he could not pass a drug test. And think about this, you have to go to work 3 times a year, and you couldn't pass a drug test? You're so weak-minded and so addicted to marijuana that you couldn't stay off it enough to pass a drug test 3 times a year. Well, guess what, dummy? They drug test in the real world too. And I want to know where this rocket scientist is going to go and make $100,000 a year.
And he went on a public rant and a public feud against Dana White, banning him for life.
No, I'm not the biggest fan of Mr. White, you know. I don't think he has good business ethics. He is an asshole. He was really cold-blooded towards me. If you knew one of your employees had their 3rd child and was still doing good work but failed a drug test again, like, maybe he needs help, you know, like, maybe we can go another route with this, right? I don't think he does things properly. I don't think he treats people properly. I just don't think he's a good person.
Matt Riddle would go on to become a very successful wrestler. He started in the indie circuit, then got signed by WWE, and now he's back in the indie circuit, but he's doing himself and making a lot of money out there. So you gotta be happy for him. Sadly, it's not as happy for people that have a similar story. Much like Riddle, Ruslan Magomedov also failed 2 drug tests in 1 year, where Magomedov's violations were far more serious. The first time was in 2016 when he tested positive for selective androgen receptors, intended to enhance muscle growth. And his second violation took place in October 2018, and it involved 2 steroid metabolites. And the situation worsened in February this following year, when he actually declined the sample. As a result, USADA banned him for life, essentially banning him from the UFC. Ruslan has seemingly vanished from everything, assuming he's living a quiet life. He did have a couple of movies where he played Khabib in a TV series, but other than that, he seems to have vanished. Or these problems seem to be drug problems. No matter what you do, don't attack a referee. That is definitely crossing the line. And Jason High found it the hard way. After losing his 2nd round TKO victory in 2014, High shoved the referee, angered by what he believed were shots to the back of the head. And he did apologize for his actions, but unfortunately it was too late, as the UFC had already made plans to cut him. And so they did. However, this doesn't mean that the UFC doesn't give people second chances. Thiago Silva got arrested in Florida with accusations of pointing a gun to his wife and threatening to kill her initially. This would ban Thiago Silva, but when the charges were dropped, Dana would go ahead and give Thiago a second chance.
Let's talk a little bit about Thiago Silva. You know, after his domestic violence arrest, you took him back. You originally said he'd never fight in the UFC again. Why'd you take him back?
I said he'd never fight in the UFC again when his SWAT team was around his house and things weren't looking too good for Thiago Silva.
Makes sense.
Good point.
That's legit.
When the SWAT team is surrounding your house, probably a good chance you're in big trouble. He went through the process, and no charges were filed against him, and they let him go. You're innocent until proven guilty, and the guy walks. If there was some type of video or something like that turned up on Thiago, then yeah, it would be a different story.
However, Dana White would ban this fighter twice. as a video emerged of him carrying a gun and accusing his wife of having another man in the house. His wife can be seen filming and saying that she's only filming in case he does something dumb. Only a few months later, by the way. And immediately the UFC banned Silva once again. And BJ Penn met a similar fate. Penn had a losing streak of 7 losses in a row, and the UFC was already looking for a way to have him out on the way out. However, this video emerged of BJ Penn in a street fight in Hawaii. BJ Penn can be seen landing at least 3 punches until bystanders interfere. On the same video, you can see BJ Penn getting knocked down. At which point, the UFC would ban BJ Penn, and Dana White's head, his brain was already battered.
Then you see videos come out of him, you know, in an altercation in Hawaii. What were your thoughts when you saw those videos?
He won't fight again.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
How
That's a wrap.
Nowadays, BJ Penn has his own news show, and he dedicates himself to that. So he is off the fighting, like Dana White wanted. Alman and Saitas was banned for a very newish reason, and this is because this happened in 2020. Alman and Saitas was accused of breaking the health and wellness policy, not steroid-wise.
Otman Azaitar, we're all excited about seeing him fight. We now know that he's not, and the press release has said that it's a health and safety violation. I'm surprised at that, because how do you do that out here?
It's pretty amazing, actually, yeah. So he and his team cut off their wristbands, gave them to somebody outside the bubble. I don't know how they even did it. That guy taped them, showed up here with a bag, went into a room, shimmied across 4 balconies, went in his room, dropped the bag off, changed his clothes, and then left. Now, when security tried to stop him, he wouldn't stop. Either way, yeah, it's just that. He's gone. He's no longer a UFC fighter, and he's not fighting tonight.
So he's been cut from the UFC off the back of that?
Yep.
Alman would get banned from the UFC.
What was in the bag?
They can ask, no problem.
Not going to tell us that?
No problem, you can ask. But the thing is, let's say I come in to this room with a bag. Why would you ask me what's in the bag?
But
What's in your bag?
this guy supposedly broke into a bubble to get you said bag. So that's a bit different than if you brought one in here today.
Have you been there in this bubble?
I was in the bubble, yeah.
Did someone check your bag before you went in?
They sprayed it, they didn't check it.
So my bags also were not checked. No one ever checked my bag, so why this big secret around this bag? If I wanted to sneak anything in, I could have done it without any, like Mission Impossible or sending Spider-Man to give Batman something.
It's a lot of superhero friends that you have.
Yeah, I belong to these guys, you know, Otman, Batman, Ant-Man,
It's the same
all
thing.
these guys.
However, after the COVID pandemic 2 years later, he would be brought back, and he would have that match against Matt Frivola. However, his 13-0 streak would end because he would lose that fight. And then his match back after that, he would also lose that match in the first round. He has since been demoted to a fight night card, but the fight was canceled for unknown reasons. I guess only time will tell with this one. Now this upcoming one is one of the most controversial ever. In 2010, John Copenhaver, commonly known as War Machine, was let go from the UFC after declining a fight from UFC matchmaker Thiago Silva and making controversial comments regarding to the death of Evan Tanner, who died to heat exhaustion while on a rural trip to Palo Alto deserts. On his MySpace page, he had mentioned how Tanner had gone to the solo desert Palo Alto to take his own life, after realizing that his career might have been over and he didn't make all that much money out of it. Despite later on investigations being found that it wasn't a suicide situation, War Machine still stood by his word. And then he was fired and banned for generating unnecessary controversy. Years later, controversial MMA fighter would be handed life imprisonment for assaulting and other things to his estranged girlfriend. Now, who do you guys think deserves a second chance? Now, me personally, I think that Matt Riddle deserves a second chance. But I did mention somebody over here who is somewhat banned as well. However, he's not officially banned, so I didn't include him in this list. And that is this man right here, Demetrius Johnson. So check out that video and see how he could deserve a second chance. But he is also doing amazing in One Championship. And I'll see you in that video. See ya!
It's all on the coat, ballin' now, skirt down, all of these diamonds soap. Bought them for me with the yours now. You could drink it, but take it slow. Ballin' for